going to be a leader in change, you need to be able to understand what is being said, who's saying it, get your head around the problem. You need to be analytical. You need to be able to make sense of all of the different things you hear, and try to kind of, in my head, the way I describe it is you've got to form patterns. You got to see where the patterns are, and understand, which ones are more important, to prioritize those patterns. And then you need to have patience. That's the other thing. I think to be an innovator, or to be, a good designer, you can't rush at solutions before you have all of the facts. So we try to train our guys, when we come to work, that about 50% of the problem is going to be is going to be like research, or going to be defining what the problem is. So a customer comes to us with a problem to solve. That's rarely the problem we actually get paid to solve at the end of the project.
Right.
I mean, things change because you start off, okay, you think this is the problem, but let's go and find out what the problem really is. And you do that by listening to people. You listen to the people in the business, you listen to the customers outside of the business, and you do a little bit of analytics yourself to understand, how those two mesh together. And then that becomes the new problem that you need to solve. But the other thing is, if you rush at it, the first couple of people you talk to will have suggestions and will want you to follow a certain path. If you go down that path, you cut yourself off to what you might hear further into the conversation when you talk to different people. And sometimes it can be hard not to jump to solutions, but it's good practice, we find, to try and kind of park solutionizing, until we've finished with the listening part. So let's gather the research, let's understand the problem, and when we're happy that this is the problem we're going to solve, then we start thinking about the solution.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that in many cases, when you're thinking about listening, it means that you're curious. It means that you want to really learn more, and that you don't have the answer. That there is a question that you're eager to find out more about.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that's part of listening.
Like we work across such a wide domain of industries, from like finance, from high tech, from healthcare, from product, So I don't know anything about any of these areas. I'm not a healthcare expert, but everything I do know, I've heard from listening to people, and so when I start working in a project, let's say in neurology, or in diabetes, or whatever the area might be, you immediately just have to kind of open up your mind to absorb as much information as you can from the people that you're talking to. And I don't know, I think if you really listen to them as people, when you talk to a nurse and a nurse explains the problem to you, if you're really listening to what she's saying, you can very quickly understand, this is the nature of how this works, and this is what's important to her. And you do that for a couple of weeks, and you begin to have a pretty good feeling for how everything fits together.
Right. I think it's the fact that you need to address the people as humans and not just as potential clients or something. You need to solve something for them, and you need to understand them and then represent them in the process, which is very important. So I totally agree. This is one of the reasons that I always decide to stay as a business owner. I never went into a company, because I always learned each time I went into a project, into a domain. I learned so much, and it was so much more interesting for me.
Yeah, it's the only good thing about this job, is that it's never a dull day.
I wouldn't say the only, I would say it's the best thing about
It's the best thing. It's the best thing.
Yeah. So what do you think